Hello, I'm Dr. Nathan Gellert. In this video about motivational interviewing, I'll talk about signs that a client is ready to begin planning for change. That is, the process of moving from evoking to planning. I'll also talk about developing a change plan with a client. It is crucial for a counselor to know when is the right time to start talking about change planning. Thus, the counselor needs to know when a client is ready for planning. As is the spirit of motivational interviewing, the counselor must continue to encourage collaboration with the client as they approach planning. How do we know when a client is ready for change planning? This is an important question. If the counselor suggests or pushes planning too early, then the client is likely to resist or to fail if they agree to try to change. Fortunately, there are specific behavioral markers that you can watch for that indicate when a client is ready for planning. These behaviors are listed on this slide, and I'll talk about each of them. Increased change talk. The more people describe their desire, ability, reasons, and need for change, the more they are open to considering how it might occur. Counselors should listen not only for high-strength commitment or activation language, for instance, I'm ready to do it, but also for more subtle, low-strength commitment and activation language, such as, I might do it. Taking steps. No matter how big or small, any step towards change is a step in the right direction and should be treated as such. Diminished sustain talk. When a client expresses equal amounts of change talk and sustain talk, the result is ambivalence. However, when change talk increases and sustain talk decreases, then the client is getting closer to change. Resolve. This one might be a bit more difficult for the counselor to recognize, as the client is not overtly expressing or voicing readiness for change. The client may instead become more quiet and reflective, or perhaps become tearful, as if the realization of change is setting in. Envisioning. This occurs when the person begins considering the possibilities that can occur if they do change. For example, a client trying to lose weight might say to a counselor, "Can you imagine how much energy I might have?" It's important for the counselor to also pay attention to negative envisioning statements as well. For example, the same client might say, "Working out every day is really going to be tough." Although a pessimistic statement, the client is nonetheless still considering or envisioning what it would be like to change. Questions about change. Unlike envisioning, the client might not be able to imagine what might happen if they changed, but they are still expressing curiosity about it by asking questions. For example, someone trying to quit smoking might ask the counselor, "How do people normally go about quitting?" Again, you'll know a client is ready to begin planning for change when these behaviors are present. So, what should a counselor do when they see these behaviors and believe that a client is ready for planning? It's important first to test the waters, a process that includes 3 key counselor tasks. First comes recapitulation. This is a summary of all the client's change talk up until that point in order to remind them of their motivations for change. It is up to the counselor whether or not to mention any of the client's past sustain talk when recapitulating, although the primary focus should be on the change talk. My personal preference is to leave out the sustain talk. Next, ask the key question. In asking a key question after recapitulation, the counselor's goal is not to evoke commitment from the client, but rather to allow the client to reflect on all that has been reviewed and then consider what to do from there. A key question might be, "So what do you think you'll do?" The final step is to offer a pregnant pause. After asking the client the key question, be silent. This gives the client the time to reflect and process. Let's look at an example of testing the waters with a client who has been contemplating exercise. The counselor has seen a clear indication of some of the behaviors that we just talked about. The counselor tests the waters by saying, "You've talked about so many good reasons to begin exercising, including wanting to live longer, having more energy at work, feeling more attractive as you date, and respecting your body. What do you think you'll do next?" Then there's the pause, and we might imagine that the client responds by saying, "It's true. I think the time has come for me to make a change. I'm ready." The planning process builds on the same skills that are used in engaging, focusing, and evoking. You will still be listening for and attending to change talk. The difference will be that change talk will relate to a specific change plan. There will be one new form of change talk, and that is client language about the efficacy of treatment. In other words, does the client think the plan will work? Obviously, it's important to watch for and attend to this language. Clients will choose action when they believe they can be successful. So, how should you proceed with change planning? Let's look next at 3 different planning scenarios: when there is a clear plan, when there are several clear options, and developing a plan from scratch. It's important to note that the evoking process doesn't end just because you're in the planning phase. Good planning involves a continual practice of engaging, focusing, and evoking. There will be a clear plan when there's only one way to pursue the goal, or when clients have already made up their mind about how they want to proceed, and the struggle was just about whether or not to do it. This is the simplest scenario. A first step in helping to consolidate a specific plan like this is to offer a clear summary of it, to make sure you and the client both understand and agree about it. For example, what you plan to do then is to go to the cabin and stay there for a whole week, taking everything you'll need, but no liquor. The second step involves mobilizing change talk. This is done by evoking activation talk, asking questions such as, "How ready are you to do that?" Also asking for commitment by asking, "Are you ready to do it?" Then getting more specific by asking questions such as, "How would you get ready?" Then setting a date by asking, "When could you do that? When do you think you'll go?" And finally, preparing by asking, "What would be a first step? What would you need to take along?" The final step is troubleshooting. It's important to ask what might go wrong. What are possible obstacles or unanticipated difficulties that could arise? If you raise these points and ask the client how he or she could respond to them, the answer is likely to be more mobilizing change talk. Avoid providing solutions yourself. From a motivational interviewing perspective, if the client is raising the problems and you're providing the answers, then you're directing and not guiding. When there are several clear options, motivational interviewing advocates for the process of path mapping, which is a parallel to agenda mapping, because the process is one of choosing from among possible routes the best path towards the destination. Let's review the steps in path mapping. Step 1. The goal may seem quite clear at this point, but it doesn't hurt to confirm the destination before setting out on a journey. What is the change that the client chooses to pursue? There may be a larger, long-term goal and more proximal sub-goals. A good guide finds out first where the person wants to go, then they consider different possible routes to get there. If there are several proximal goals, which of them should be pursued first? Step 2. With a clear goal in mind, the next task is to enumerate the alternative paths that are available for getting there. For the change this person wants to make, what are the sound, evidence-based ways to achieve it? With the client's permission, you can offer a menu of options. This is not meant to supplant the person's own ideas and preferences, not at all. Your expertise is a resource in the planning process, and the client also brings important resources. The key task is to develop a list of the options that are available without spending too much time critiquing them. Step 3. Among the alternative routes available, what are the client's own preferences and hunches? A good guide offers, here are the different routes that we could take. Which one appeals more to you? Step 4. This is much like Scenario 1. Once a plan has emerged, offer a summary of it to make sure you're both clear about it. Then evoke mobilizing change talk. Step 5. What obstacles might be encountered along the way? Again, a good guide does this, saying, if we take that route, here are some things that you should be prepared for. Remember not to switch into a prescriptive directing style here. The evoking process continues throughout planning. A model approach would be to ask clients how they might respond if certain obstacles are encountered. In Scenario 3, the client and counselor are challenged to develop a plan from scratch. There is a clear goal, but it is not at all apparent how to get there. The main task is to work together to develop a change plan, all the while resisting the writing reflex and not simply telling the client what you think they should do. First, make sure you understand the client's chosen destination. If this is not clear, there is a need for additional focusing, and possibly evoking as well, to confirm motivation for the goal itself. Second, work with the client to generate possible options, steps, or plans. Third, with a list of options available, the process converges again with that described for Scenario 2 earlier. What are the client's hunches or preferences among the possibilities considered? Fourth, negotiate a starting point for change, a Plan A. Then break the plan down into multiple achievable steps and troubleshoot as needed. Thanks for joining me for this video. In the next video, I'll talk about strengthening commitment for change. Please click the subscribe button to receive notifications when new videos are published, and if you've enjoyed this video, then please click the like button to support my work.